Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1938A, and today's date is August 8th, 2019, and the title of the episode is The Economic Control is Unbelievable. Bet you didn't see this happening. Now, before I get started, I wanted to talk about gold. If you've been watching the news lately, you'll have seen the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 launch. Those Saturn V rockets moved. They went from 0 to 24,791 miles per hour by the time they reached the moon. And if you plotted their trajectory on a chart, it might look something like this. Except this isn't an Apollo launch. This is the price of gold since June. Noble Gold has been predicting the gold takeoff since last year. Their Facebook page has been warning of the dangers of keeping all your assets in stocks for months. And they were right. If you want a financial cushion for your own splashdown retirement, you better get some gold or silver into your IRA or 401k before it's too late to catch up. Give Noble Gold a call and start your own mission to a safe landing somewhere exotic. Call Noble Gold at 877-646-5347 and make sure to mention X22 Report to see if there are any promotions they're running for gold IRA rollovers. Call 877-646-5347 or hit the link below. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, as you can see, what has happened? The market went up. Gold is still above 1,500. So far, we've seen no attempt from the central bank or other banks to bring down the precious metals market. Now, this doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but at this point, I don't believe they're going to play their hand. I believe that Trump and the patriots, they're in complete control. And when you look at the stock market, and I know the stock market has nothing to do with the economy, but remember, the deep state, the central bank, they created this perception that if unemployment is low, GDP numbers look good, the stock market is moving up, this is the framework for the economy. That means the economy is doing well. Doesn't matter what's happening to the people, doesn't matter how many stores are closing. That doesn't matter. If you see these things, that means the entire system is doing well. And like I said many times before, Trump is using all their weapons against them. He has the central bank where he wants them. Remember, Trump, his entire policy is America first. Let's make America great again. How do you do that? Well, you can't do it with a central bank system. You can't do it with certain individuals in power. You can't do it with government swamped by the swamp. It's impossible. You need to remove all this. Now remember, in the past 35 years, the Wall Street multinationals gained as cheap money flowed overseas to start global manufacturing operations. Main Street USA suffered for it. When you reverse this process by punishing the multinationals, using tariffs, shifting the global supply chain, and changing the best location for investment dollars, Main Street USA benefits. This is what Trump is doing. Trump has changed everything. Remember, he's making America great again, which means bringing back businesses, bringing back manufacturing, removing this horrible central bank system that does not benefit the people. Do you think it's just a coincidence that he's contradicting and hitting the Fed as hard as possible? Remember months ago when people were out there saying, oh, look, he just started to contradict the Fed. And we said, as we get closer to the end of this year, he was just going to unleash and go after the Fed. What is he doing right now? He's exactly doing what we said he was going to do. He is moving the entire arsenal of weaponry and pointing it towards the Fed. And he's going to continue to do this. He wants to wake America up. He wants to wake the world up to what is going on here. Remember what he tweeted out yesterday. 3 more central banks cut rates. Our problem is not China. We are stronger than ever. Money is pouring into the U.S. while China is losing companies by the thousands to other countries, and their currency is under siege. Our problem is the Federal Reserve. That is too proud to admit their mistake of acting too fast and tightening too much, and that I was right. They must cut rates bigger and faster and stop their ridiculous quantitative tightening now. Yield curve is at too wide a margin and no inflation. Incompetence is a terrible thing to watch, especially when things could be taken care of so easily. We will win anyway, but it would be much easier if the Fed understood, which they don't, that we are competing against other countries, all of whom want to do well at our expense. We're competing against other countries. We're competing with all those companies that were moved out of the United States into these other countries. He wants to bring them back. He wants them out of the other countries. Because the globalists, the central bankers, they move these companies out of the United States. And he's doing this because he understands that this system, the central bank system, can no longer function. It's dead in the water. It has been for a very long time. Of course, they had completely different plans. But Trump is not following that path. He's changed the path. And now the world is following him. What do I mean by this? I mean, think about what he said in his tweet. 3 more central banks cut rates, which means other central banks are doing exactly what he wants them to do. They're all cutting rates, and many more will follow. What happens when that happens? When there's no interest? Remember, the central bank system operates on putting countries into debt, where it's completely impossible to pay back. They love their interest attached to the currency they loan governments. Because think about it. Let's go back to the beginning. When the central bank is first set up and they loan that first dollar to the government, there's interest attached on it. Remember, that's the only dollar that exists in the world. Now the government has it. The central bank says, hey, you owe us $1.05, $1.10, whatever the interest rate is. Where does the government get the 5 cents or the 10 cents? Well, it doesn't exist, does it? They have to borrow more to pay that back. And this is what the central bank does. It hurts countries. It hurts the people. It does not benefit anybody except the central bank. Now, Trump, he understands this, and he's continually pushing and prodding the Federal Reserve. And while he's doing this, he's letting the people know. He tweeted out the following: as your president, one would think I would be thrilled with our very strong dollar. I'm not. The Fed's high interest rate level in comparison to other countries is keeping the dollar high, making it more difficult for our great manufacturers like Caterpillar, Boeing, John Deere, our car companies, and others to compete on a level playing field. With substantial Fed cuts, there is no inflation and no quantitative tightening. The dollar will make it possible for our companies to win against any competition. We have the greatest companies in the world. There is nobody even close, but unfortunately, the same cannot be said about our Federal Reserve. They've called it wrong at every step of the way, and we are still winning. Can you imagine what would happen if they actually called it right? Now he's out there telling everyone the Fed has no clue in what they're doing. They have no idea on how to work this economy. Well, they really don't. The only thing they know is to better themselves, to put countries into debt and continually put them into debt. That is it. That's all they know. Do they know how to bring manufacturing back? Do they know how to create jobs? Do they know how to make America great? No. Look across the world. What countries have they made incredibly rich and prosperous? None. Most of the countries are in debt. Most of the countries are struggling. And this is because of the central bank system. But look at Russia, for instance. They got rid of their central. I shouldn't say they got rid of it. They took control of the central bank. The central bank is still there, but it does not take orders from the Rothschilds. This is why they hate Russia so much. They take orders from the Russian government. And they have virtually no debt whatsoever, which means the central bank has no leverage over the people. And Trump right now wants the same thing. He wants an economy with no debt, with no outside force telling the people on how to run their economy. He doesn't want the Rothschilds to control the U.S. or the world, for that matter. But when we look around, you can see that the world is following what he's doing. The Central Bank of New Zealand, India, Thailand, and many others, they have all cut their rates. They're following along. And this is all being done on purpose. Remember, once we get to zero and other central banks get to zero, what's the purpose of the central bank at that point? They can create currency with 0% interest. Well, the governments can create currency with 0% interest, right? There's no reason for it. They're going to control unemployment. Well, it seems like Trump is controlling unemployment, not the Fed. Trump is making the central bank completely obsolete. That is the plan. And he wants to show America that we don't need it. And this is why he's continually doing this. Remember Q's post 135, 136, 137, and so on. Q listed all the private Western central bank systems. These are Rothschild-owned and controlled banks. Why do you think Q listed all of this? Why did Q show everyone these banks? To let you know that the central bank, the Rothschild system, how much control they have over the world. And actually, if you look at post 138, down below it says, the Fed and the IRS. Fact, U.S. Federal Reserve is a privately owned company sitting on its very own patch of land, immune to U.S. laws. Think about that for a second. We have a privately owned company sitting on its own land, and the U.S. laws cannot touch them. Think about all the other central banks in all the other countries. Can any of their laws touch them? No, they operate above the law. Should that be? No, absolutely not. This is why Q, the Patriots, are showing this. This is about to change. And the Patriots are pushing right now to change all of this. This is what this is about. Waking the American people up, making sure the American people understand that the private Western central bank system is not a benefit to them. They don't know what they're doing. They've called it wrong every single time. Trump has to correct them every single time. And once they do what he says, what do we see? We see the market go up. What did the market do? It bounced back. It's like a miracle. What did gold do? It went above 1,500. Yes, it's down a little bit. But guess what? These things always bob up and down. The point is they're bringing the level of gold up each time. Not too fast, but enough. And what is Trump doing with the Federal Reserve? Hey, look at the market now. The market's going to go up even again. And he's going to say, listen, if they did what I said, this market would be skyrocketing right now. I mean, the United States would be blasting off like we've never seen before. Now, of course, this is all statistical. But this is what the American people have been brainwashed into. And he wants to make sure that the mainstream media continues with that narrative. How do they counter it? Yes, they're trying to say there's going to be a recession. How are they saying it's a recession when everything looks fantastic? Are they going to believe what the mainstream media is saying? Because every time the market goes up, every time everything looks better and better and better, it seems like they don't know what they're talking about. Remember, the mainstream media used to have control over what was going on because the central bank had control. Now it's the other way around. They don't have control. Trump has control. He has the magic wand. And he's going to tell the Federal Reserve, listen, yes, that was a quarter of a point, but if you did more, this would be incredible. Now, once the Federal Reserve does this, the market's going to take off. Everything's going to look fantastic. And the mainstream media is going to be out there saying, we're heading into a recession. The Dems are going to be out there. We're heading into a recession. Everything looks bad. What are people going to look at? They're going to look at and say, okay, these people have no idea what they're talking about. What are they talking about? Because they're looking at the unemployment numbers, looking at GDP, they're looking at the stock market, they're looking at companies come back to the United States. Guess what? Who controls the economic narrative right now? The patriots. The patriots are in full control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.